Palestinian Authority may soon see an end to funding from the United States. This all in an effort to curb deadly attacks in the region. Alex Miller joins us now. Alex, the idea is that some in Congress think if we cut off this supply of money, it could cut off what we're seeing in terms of stabbings and car rammings over the last few years.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of it. So Congress will soon vote on a bill to aim to stop the flow of money to the families of alleged terrorists.
It's been just over a year since Taylor Force was murdered.
A U.S. Army veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan was stabbed to death today by a Palestinian.
The West Point grad was visiting Israel as an MBA student with Vanderbilt University when he was attacked in Jaffa. The 28-year-old's murder occurred during a string of stabbings, shootings, and car rammings in the region. But how his murder and countless others were handled in Gaza bothered his family and many in Congress. Their Israeli and American deaths are treated as celebratory, with sweets handed out in the streets and financial rewards given to terrorist families.
The person who murdered Taylor Force was called a martyr. They get treated to funerals as if they were some head of state. So if the terrorist gets killed, the terrorist gets imprisoned, there's a financial reward, money that is paid to that family of those terrorists.
And that's where Congressman Lee Zeldin believed he could make a difference.
The Taylor Force Act is proposed to cut off funding to the Palestinian Authority as long as they continue to incite violence and financially reward terrorism.
Right now, the United States gives more than $300 million to the Palestinian Authority each year. That's nearly half of all the foreign aid they get.
We are contributing into a pot of money that ends up getting used to help pay for financially rewarding terrorism.
The bill, which passed both House and Senate committees, would cut funding for the PA unless they took credible steps to end acts of violence and terminated payments for acts of terrorism against United States and Israeli citizens.
We need to better leverage the money that we're providing to the Palestinians.
Sam Bahor chairs the Americans for a Vibrant Palestinian Economy. In a statement, Bahor called the legislation a witch hunt, saying in part, Congress is at it again, attempting to punish the people who have been struggling under Israeli military occupation for 50 years and counting. Hussam Zomlat, the PLO's envoy to Washington, told the Jerusalem Post the program supports families of legitimate combatants against occupation. The legislation has received nearly unanimous bipartisan support.
I also spoke with Congresswoman Jackie Walorski. She's also supporting this piece of legislation. We discussed in depth what cutting this funding could mean for the region. Does it worry you that that money might be used specifically to pay these terrorist families?
Well, this money is used to pay these terrorist families. I think that we know that. I think we've known that for a long time. And this is an opportunity for the Congress to come together in a bipartisan way. And I think this is a very fair thing to do, and it's long overdue. Just to basically say to the world, we're not going to send money out to help anybody commit any kind of support to terrorists that are killing Americans and killing innocent people, innocent lives, whether it's in Israel or anywhere else.
The Palestinian people rely heavily on this funding. Do you think it sends a negative message to them that we are prioritizing Israel over their people?
I don't, because I think what this says is, and I think the attitude this administration has taken, is this is a zero tolerance against terrorism. This specifically answers this issue of innocent people being killed by money going through the hands of the PLO and then put right in to garner the forces of terrorism to kill innocent lives. And this should have stopped 10 years ago, but this is the time to stop it. We can do it now.
Will money bring them to the table if, you know, we've been having these issues between the two countries for decades now? Do you think that is the factor that might change things?
Well, it certainly can't hurt, because I think we've more than proven the direct correlation between these groups, and that the money does pay for the terrorists, goes to their families, and there's many ways that you benefit when you get involved in terrorism.
Right, because we have, there are other governments that send money to Hamas and situations like that.
Iran, obviously the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the entire world.
Well, in theory, if they're sending money to Hamas and we're sending money to the Palestinians, are we just as much at fault?
Well, I think that's why you have bills like this that says, hey, you know what, we can cover many things in the National Defense Authorization budget, and we did. But to hone down in and go past this and get to the next layer, this is absolutely on point, on target, and this is the time to do it, because this is the next layer. This is now pulling back the veil and saying, okay, now that we've done this, what do we do to really get at this? What do we do to stop that stream of money and stop sending money from our own country where we've lost the blood, and we finally come to a stop and say, and this is going to stop too. We're going to stand with our greatest ally, Israel. We're going to stand for the defense of freedom and liberty, and we're absolutely going to stop that line where the Palestinian Authority and Hamas have an ability to go in there and pay and reward people for killing innocent people and for supporting terrorism.
Alex, you can hear how impassioned, these members of Congress are who you spoke with, but some people do oppose this bill.
Yeah, it's widely supported. It passed unanimously in the House committee, but in the Senate committee, there were 4 Democrats who initially opposed it. Senator Cory Booker was one of them, but he added an amendment in basically saying that the funds would not be taken away from different philanthropic organizations.
Like humanitarian
exactly.
type thing.
Any sort of effort that we give money as a country to help them, that wouldn't be counted in part of this cuts.
Why do the other people oppose it?
There's talk that, we've talked about this before, that, one man's terror attack is another person's freedom fighter, and the Palestinians see this as their freedom fighters that are sacrificing, and their families should be compensated for the sacrifice that they make. But Senator Schumer and Cardin, both Democrats, supporting it, it's likely to pass.
Thank you.